No one ever looked for me. That's the main thing that I remember. 12 years old, you leave the family home. I'm now 45. Since that age, no one's ever looked for me. That blows my mind. I found the streets. I slept in different places. I slept in shop wells. I remember that internal cold. We get to that spiritual awakening for me, a profound shift in consciousness. I don't want to use anymore. I don't want to drink anymore. How did that happen? How did that happen when my kids, my wives, my businesses, my life, nothing could stop me from using? It's life-changing. I know we've said it a couple of times, but it is life-changing. The biggest thing recovery has given me is a quiet mind.
Hello and welcome to 12 Steps and 12 Questions. My name is Silvio and I'm an addict. This pod is full of personal and inspirational stories of recovery from addiction. And in every episode I'll ask each guest the same 12 questions about their life, addiction and recovery. Quick warning, there will be some graphic descriptions and a healthy amount of swearing. For this episode, please welcome Purdy.
Purdy, thank you so much for coming around today for this new episode of 12 Steps and 12 Questions. Before we get to your introduction, I'd very quickly like to say thank you to all the people who've listened. Thank you also for the wonderful feedback I've been getting. And very quickly, if you like the show, if you're enjoying it, please rate it on wherever you're listening to it and tell your recovery circle about it so that the message gets spread just a little bit more. Thank you so much. Purdy, let's get to your introduction.
Silvia, thank you. My name is Purdy. I'm a recovered addict and recovering human being, and extremely grateful to be here and spending time with you, mate.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's get straight to question one. Question one is, did you have any adverse childhood experiences?
Wow. Okay. Straight in. Straight in. I like it. Yes, I did. I was adopted, from birth. So my mum was only 15. So I had that abandoned as I saw it from an early age, but obviously I was gone into care, picked up by a family when I was relatively young, moved to London. And from memory, the household, I can't remember much of my early childhood. I think it was okay, like from 0 to 6 until my mother left and a new woman moved into the house. And I think that was when life completely changed for me. It was, I was made aware that I was adopted. So I knew that.
What was that like? I mean, were you sat down and people said...
I can't remember I know it happened, Silvio. I can't remember how it happened, but I know that I was aware that I was adopted. And I think that was enhanced, and that was brought by the new woman coming into the house. They suddenly had kids of their own, and I became very much an outsider. So I became that, and I was told, and I was whispered to, even her parents used to whisper as I walked past, you're not part of this family, you're not blood, so and what I would do is I would kick off about it, and I would sort of be, sort of tasseling and fighting to my dad, this is what they're saying about me, and it would be like I was lying, and this battle ensued in the household where I just didn't understand, I couldn't work it out, and I remember just going to bed crying, not feeling part of. And then the new kids that came in, my brothers who, they came into the scene, and I had my sister. And, I was just an outsider, and I was made to feel that way. It escalated, it went into points of, the abuse started. Mental abuse was the big part of it. My dinner being sort of tripped over, almost acts of violence that I didn't do, stealing money that I never stole, and on this platform, if I stole some money, I'll quite happily tell you I stole some money. But I didn't do these things, and I was made an outcast by that internal family. And, I'd come home to a dad that was a workaholic, and he just beat me, and that's my memory as a child is the mental and physical abuse, to the point where I just went to bed sad. I just didn't want to be there. I didn't feel part of. I definitely didn't have a home, and I didn't want to be there.
I find it almost too tough to imagine really what that would have been like, in that you're really so defenseless at that sort of age, aren't you? And having a home is, especially at that age, I mean, I'm stating the obvious, is such a profound thing, feeling safe.
Definitely. It's most definitely. And And look what it did. I look at my life now. We were having a conversation earlier when we were walking, and I've had 30 different, the geographicals, the movements, me seeking that home that I never had. 30 places I've lived in 45 years. It's frightening.
I feel I should have a little trophy here for the most amount of geographicals. I might come up with that sort of thing a bit later. So, when was there any awareness on your behalf back then? I mean, how old were you then in this time? Sort of like 8, 9, 10?
It was 0 to So again, I can't remember, but definitely 6 to 12 is when I remember it. Remember that pain. Remember that. I was a kid that we're in a family house. I wasn't allowed people over, so I never had that sort of social side of it. So I was sort of going to school, coming back. I'd very much play on my own. I'd have the tennis ball in the sock and I'd stand on a wall and I'd be, putting the tennis ball. I was active. My mind was active. I wanted to do stuff. So I was aware that I was alone from probably ages 6 till I was about 12, until I couldn't take it anymore and I just had to get out of that family house.
Right, okay. And did you?
Yes, I did. And, for me, that's where I found, a love junkie I speak about, because that's all I wanted, someone to give me a cuddle.
Yeah. Did you, at that time, I mean, you say you left the house. How old were you then?
12.
And, okay, here you are, you're 12 years old, you're an abused child. How do you leave home? Where'd you go?
I found the streets. I slept in different places. I slept in shopwells. I remember that internal cold, that feeling, but I was so headstrong that I had to get out of that space. Anything was achievable. I had a little circle of friends, so they had cars and they'd sort of give me the car keys and I'd get in the back and sit in the back of this. No one ever looked for me. That's the main thing that I remember. Imagine that. No one looked for me. So it's 12 years old, you leave the family home. I'm now 45. Since that age, no one's ever looked for me. That blows my mind.
Yeah, it blows my mind, actually, as we speak.
But I suppose for me, it's not until later years that I think back and look at that. At the time, it was great because I was solo. I had to fend for myself. I had to work this stuff out. And even though those bone shattering and chilling and sleep, finding, flats to sleep in the stairwells, and it was just very much life. It wasn't, though, I wasn't in that moment thinking, oh my God, this is such a struggle. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's like I'm surviving. This is it. And this is where you find, you find the music, you find drugs, and you fall in love.
Which wonderfully leads us to question 2, which is, what did the moment you first got hooked, what did the fun times look like? So here you are, you're a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid. You live on the streets. I'm not sure how you managed to not be found either by the police or by social services, or return to the home that you didn't want to go back to. But let's, maybe you can get into that a little bit. And then at some point, substances were introduced into your life.
Yeah. The fun times. Wow. And it was incredible. It was incredible. And I make no bones about it. I loved that time. I think now of like movements, say like, when rock and roll came around, or punk, or all these things, and you have these big movements, mods, rockers. For me, 12 years old, 1990, rave. It was rave, and it was all of a sudden I'm hanging around with some kids that are older than me. They're all smoking weed. So it's starting off with the gas canisters up the sleeves, and we're sucking in the gas and wing, 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 head pounding out, and you're getting this out-of-body experience, and you're thinking, okay, I like this. You're being bad. I become an agent of chaos very quickly, because all of a sudden I was like, I like this feeling, I like this sensation. So I'm smoking weed, and we're all meeting up, and there's loads of us, and we're going around, this person's flat, this person's house, we're cooking up bongs. And it was a great time. You're listening to music, and then it was hardcore, so we're sort of listening to old hardcore, Carl Cox, Dougal, Slipmatt, Psy, and these guys became like heroes, Also, I remember go around my friends' houses, and they'd have these bedrooms with all these flyers, and there was flyers all over the walls and flyers all over the ceiling, all these raves, Dreamscape, Rhythm Station, Helter Skelter. And I was in, I loved it. Got myself like a yellow NASA jacket, You know, had the round glossy posse hat and with the white gloves and the whistle. And,
Yeah.
And we're out. We're finding these parties, and we're, you know, I got on the mic. I become an MC. I was MCing to hardcore at the time. I went into garage and that as the years went on, but I loved it, man. I mean, I remember like collecting all the tapes, having all the tape decks, and cutting out the flyers, and then cutting out the names of the DJs and putting them on the tapes and having them in files. Never around someone's house. They got stolen them. I had about 120 tapes. I remember that. I loved that time. And so what was it like? It was out of this world good. I found love in ecstasy, in speed, you know, having that, dropping down the Rizzlers and putting the speed down your throat and talking. And I remember being so friendly, giving stuff away. Yeah, you can have my ring. You know, we're chatting, we're talking, we're cuddling, we're taking this ecstasy, and we're rubbing each other's faces, and the music's alive. And I remember it, and I remember those piano tunes, you know, gonna touch the sky, you never been this high, dun 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 dun. That elation, that feeling, that, oh my God. And I got, you know, my hairs are standing on end now because I was transported to a different world. You know, I was transported to this world where I felt alive, you know, and I felt like somebody, and I felt like I had that unity and circle of friends, and wow, what is this stuff? And we're traveling, and that old life was gone. That old love was a distant memory. You know, I didn't know that later on it would come back to haunt me in my using, because the obsession was so much for me to get out of head. But I tell you what, it was gorgeous. And acid, you know, and all of a sudden the fires, and we're dancing around the fires, and we're just doing the most strangest things. And it was incredible. And I loved it.
Yeah. Were drugs immediately a problem, or did that have to wait just a bit? At the beginning, it was just fun, because it was just fun for me at the beginning. I mean, you took me back a little bit there, and probably not just me. What you were saying, particularly about ecstasy and stuff, you know, that incredible love I felt, and the warmth, you know, that, you know, he would, you know, with other people were dancing, it's sweaty, you know, in the clubs, and you touching each other. It was amazing. You know, I thought it was the best thing in the world. I'd finally arrived, you know. Did you have any awareness that drugs were doing things for you that you couldn't do for yourself?
None at all, you know, and definitely didn't think I had a problem.
Yeah.
It was a time, it was a movement, it was all those things you've just said. A group of people meeting up in these places, taking your tops off. The club, women, men, tops off, dancing, sweaty, 8 o'clock in the morning, and cuddling each other, cuddling strangers. There was no fighting. I don't remember fights or people trying to pull each other.
Yeah, that's for the alkies, right? That's what we always thought at the time. It was like, oh, that's for the alkies.
Correct.
They do this, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The rockers. There was the rockers and the ravers. So yeah, they were down the pub. We weren't. We were out, and we were spiritual.
Yeah, love children.
Love children.
Love whatever it is.
So you know, I didn't think it was a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a problem at all. I knew that I liked the feeling, and I wanted to keep going, you know, keep going. And new adventures, every day was an adventure. It was great.
So if I look back at my time, you know, around this time, how old were you then? Maybe 17, 18, something like that?
Moving up to then, yeah. So it was from 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, all those, So probably 6, 7 years.
You probably thought, like I did, that this is the time, although mine was a little bit later than that. But, you know, you thought, this is what you're supposed to do when you're 17, 18, 19, right? This is exactly what is supposed to happen. There is nothing wrong with it, right? But given your story and your background, just in practical terms, how were you supporting yourself?
We were robbing, you know, we were stealing. It wasn't so much, you know, a massive crime thing at the time. It became that, but, you know, first of all, it was just survival. So you'd sort of, you know, we'd all muck in, we'd all chip in, we'd all find a way. And it wasn't, you know, you could get you'd have a love dove, or you'd have whatever it was, and it'd cost a certain amount of money, and that would be your high for the day. So you weren't chasing. It wasn't the coke years. You know, I wasn't chasing big money to get high. I was getting high off of a couple of microdots, or, you know, a bit of ecstasy, or whatever it was. So it wasn't in the day to keep ourselves fed and watered. You know, we'd be in shops. We'd be, you know, just hand to mouth and living that type of life. It changed. You know, a darker twist was definitely put on a beautiful arena. You know, as, you know, more and more, and money. And I think back now, and I think, was it because of drugs? Was it because I went into some crime where I was working for drug dealers, and I started to, you know, take cars. I started to blow up other drug dealers and, their cars and working for it become very sordid and very, very not nice. And I was getting paid in drugs. So it wasn't so, I could steal what I wanted to eat, and I could get paid in drugs for the drugs that I wanted to take. So that was how life sort of balanced and worked then. And it was a shame, because it definitely changed. And that was from sort of 17 moving forward. So, crack, I smoked my first bit of crack then, and ended up with needles in my arm, because it was a lot of using over the years, but I met a girl, and she was, mum was taking it, and, clean needles. So I went, how lovely of them. Clean needles. So yeah, have a clean needle, go out the drawer. So, but I was, give me. Yeah, I want to try it. Yeah, I want to try it.
Now, it was I have done a whole lot of drugs in my life and different types, and used different quote unquote medication to soothe that bit of me, right? The beast, right? Now, it wasn't until I found ecstasy and uppers generally that I was displaying those classic signs of an addict, which is that I could not stop for love or for money. I had to get stopped by an outside force. And that even though I said I would not want to use this weekend, or maybe I'd take a weekend or a weekday later off, I wasn't able to do that. Was that already the case with you then?
No,
not yet.
No, not yet. And it was still, as it transpired from crack and heroin, and I was, I was lucky. Something quite bad happened in that scenario, but I got out of that and moved from South London to North London, and where there's not going to be any drugs, and found cocaine and women and alcohol and everything else, and still did not see it as a problem. I think even coming out of, the point where I sort of go to prison at 20, still then I didn't know that was just life. That's what I knew. Bad things were happening, but I had no real realization. I don't think it's until I got to the family years that I started to really, really understand what I was.
Yeah, I suppose that kind of changed your normal, didn't it? I mean, that life before that you had, it was your normal. It happens. People go to prison. It happens. You work for drug dealers, this, that, and the other. But then later on, that changed, which sort of leads us into question 3, which is, what were your worst consequences, and finally, your rock bottom? Now, obviously, I say this time and again, not everybody had a rock bottom, or you may have had many of them, or it may have been a gradual process. But nonetheless, what were the worst consequences, and then finally, your rock bottom?
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think of my life, and I think of the emotional creature that I am. I think when I think of a rock bottom, because there was many. That I just said a minute ago, there was a story on the heroin where people were out on the rob, and I came round and there was a machete involved, and I was pinned up against the wall, and I had this guy standing over me, and he was going to drive it through my neck. There was a knock on the door, another guy came in, and they end up talking in the kitchen, and I thought it was it for me. So I escaped, run barefooted. That was the move to North London. Then I went to North London, become a dealer. Then when I stopped dealing, I ended up with nothing again. So I ended up on the streets again. So all of a sudden I'm sleeping around these people that I wouldn't normally converse, because I was like, I'm the party guy. I'm Purdy. I'm the guy with the big parties and all the women and the drugs and the money. And now all of a sudden I'm back. I've gone from this to that to this to back to a place where I'm on the streets again. So there's these lows that keep happening as we get through into the years of marriage. And, we have that children, letting them down, letting the family down, drinking drugs, taking over, being kicked out the house, sitting there hungover, crying at your rock bottom, thinking, prison, sitting there on my own, thinking, oh my God, what have I done with my life? Rock bottom, where you think it's a rock bottom, but you keep going. And it's like, I think the point I wanted to make at the beginning of that is I'm as an emotional creature. The part when I transformed my life and I got out of that family home was I went round to a friend's house, bearing in mind I was isolated from the world and abused and mentally abused. I went round a friend's house and his dad said, do you want a bacon sandwich? And my whole world fell apart. I remember it. I didn't understand it. I was so, pardon? Do you want a bacon sandwich? And now that might sound crazy. I've not had that. So him seeing that relationship with him and his dad, and then we talk about rock bottoms, no matter how many times I destroyed my family, no matter how many times I destroyed my life, no matter how many times I destroyed my businesses and I kept hitting those rock bottoms, the time that brought me into 12-step program someone saw me at my worst. A friend was worried about me and came round, and I was doing that 7 o'clock in the morning, crawling around on my hands and knees, struggling to breathe, eyes wide open. I've just got through 4 or 5 grams of coke on my own and countless bottles of coke, and I've gambled every last bit of money I've had, and I'm crawling around on the floor wanting to die. And I hid that from everybody for a very long time. People saw Party Purdy. People saw the guy that was dancing on the tables and was dressing a bit nice and was sort of there, but they didn't see Purdy when the doors were closed. The guy that carried on, the guy that kept going. They didn't see me crawling around. And what happened is, when I hit my absolute rock bottom, someone came in. They came in. My door was open. They came in. And I remember crawling around and got on that then going, Purdy? And I looked up, and they must have, they said they were frightened to death of what they saw in front of them. And that was the point for me where I really, that was, if you say, the rock bottom. So it's strange that there was probably so many worse ones in between rock bottoms. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's funny how I came into this and how I came out of this were two very emotional moments.
I find it fascinating because not everybody comes in on their quote unquote worst rock bottom, or in their worst moment even, or when they're using was at its worst. That moment when that switch, that insight switch gets hit to say, I have had enough, I cannot carry on longer than I have. And it's so individual, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's, I was so tired, man. The hunt, the chase, the not knowing, what am I going to do today, the wanting to die, and even death, and even that took me to, it was a rock bottom, but wasn't enough, and it was just, it's incredible how tired you get. And my head was so full, I remember it was just so full, and I was shattered all the time. And it's that person seeing me, I knew it was enough. I knew it was time. On my own, using on my own. I'm not going to any parties. I'm just waking up to use and wanting to die. And that's where it leads you.
Yeah, that's also our question 4, which is where it leads us.
Okay.
Which is, did you ever want to die? Did you consider suicide?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to die. And it's such a tough thing when you're actually, we speak about emotion, when you're a nice guy, And I know people say, I'm a really nice guy. I just keep destroying everybody's life. And you go, well, you're not then, are you? And you go, I am. Deep down, there's a caring guy in here who doesn't want to see anybody hurt. And, to want to die, you've always got this constant battle of, I want to die, but I'm all right. You're a good guy. You've got something to offer. I don't want to be here anymore. I listened to a share from a friend, Andy H, the other day, and he spoke about these 3 noises in his mind. I'm 44 years old. I'm in a club. There's a load of 20-year-olds dancing around. I'm standing at the back thinking I'm Billy Big Cheese. And I'm so out of place. I'm so out of place. And I've got this wife at home. I've got these kids at home that want their dad. And I can't. These 3 noises that go on in their head are, do I go home? Do I continue? Or shall I just die? And I think about that, and I think that's the battle that was always going on. I'd get to a point where I'd go so far over that I couldn't face going home. Then I'd get so far into it that I just want to die, And then the only the options that are normally left, I'll keep going until I physically cannot move, cannot think, cannot do anything else, till I'm completely and utterly debilitated and can't deal with it, and then have to deal with that hangover, which is a whole new story and thing there. So it's unbelievable.
Yeah. I think for people like us who use like we have, there's always that chance, and we know it, that we could go over, isn't there? I think there is a suicidal aspect to that kind of using.
Yeah, there is. And I went through with it, Silvio. I went through with it. I remember the ceremony. I remember sitting in a big 800 grand house that I'd had, and I was just about to sell it because I had to pay off my ex-wife, and I was about to move into a 1-bedroom flat. And I remember the ceremony, if you will. So lighting the candles, and it was a real weird. I ended up committing suicide. I did it in a very different way to the way that I had in my mind. I felt an incredible peace. I was very sad, but I remember putting pictures of my kids up. I remember laying out lots of different knives. It was like this. The only thing I didn't have was a goat, to sort of sacrifice. I'd planned the whole thing out. I was sitting there. I was so sad, but actually so ready, so ready to go. And I ended up hanging myself from a tree. That's how and I was found by some dog walkers. I ended up in hospital. That's the next I knew about it. I was struggling to talk. I woke up in hospital. There was a woman sitting there, and so I went for it. I didn't want to be here anymore. And then you come out of that isn't a rock bottom enough, and you get better. I'm straight back on it again. And now I'm in this place where I don't want to live. I can't die. Who am I?
Yeah. It's really important that we have a quick word here, and we remind everyone that if you're having these thoughts, and if you think you'd be better off dead, speak up. Call the Samaritans. Speak to anyone that you trust. It's the most important thing that we need to remember here. This isn't a bit of fun. It's not a bit of banter. Lives are at stake. So I just really want to be really clear here that we talk about this, and we talk about it because it's important to talk about it, but we also talk about it from a point of view of recovery. And I'm ever so grateful, obviously, that you're still here, Purdy.
Me too.
You don't have to, but if I may ask, you in the woods, you've got some rope with you. What goes through your mind?
I was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready. I almost remember almost like a smile, where you've completely just had nothing left. I was so tired, mate. I was so tired. I was chasing all the time. I destroyed everything I'd ever had. I'd lost everything. I'd built so much over my life. I'd done so many good things. It wasn't, even though we're talking about 44 years of there was good stuff in there. I'd managed to get good jobs and work, and I was always using, but and families and holidays, but I'd tear it down every single time. And I think you keep living that life of building and tearing down and building and tearing down because of, you're just so wrought with addiction and you don't know it. Yeah. And it's a peace. For me, it was a peace. I mean, thank God I came through the other side. Thank God I was okay. I didn't know about a solution then, So I'm doing this all on, I just don't want to be anymore. And I remember that calmness and I remember doing it. But I remember what happened afterwards, and I was lucky. I got out of that. And like I say, life now is incredible. So thank God.
Yes,
thank God that happened. And it was beautiful what you just said before, because reach out, because there's another life.
There is another life out there. Absolutely. Question 5. What other methods did you try to get sober before finding the rooms?
If you're enjoying this podcast and would like other addicts and alcoholics to hear it, then please make the pesky AIs and algorithms work their 12th step. Hit like and subscribe.
Wow. Okay. Everything. What did I try? The willpower, all the frothy emotional appeals we talk about, everything. I mean, from not going to have any money, right, I'm going to stop doing that. The controlled using, I'm only going to drink tonight. I think it was just a conquest of my ideas. I tried some therapy and, praise therapy. If it works, it didn't work for me because I was lying. I was going there and I was bearing all, and I was having some tears, and I was normally hungover. So I was going, oh, my life's terrible and I'm awful. And I'd speak for an hour, and then he'd go, that's £60, please. And I'd pay the £60 and I'd get straight back out and I'd get on it. And then the next week I'd go and I'd sit there and so I wasn't, that's what I love about a 12-step program. I wasn't involved in it. I could go and get upset and talk about my life, but there was no action plan for me for doing that. So remind me the question.
What other methods did you try to get
Okay. So you try everything. I was workaholic. So I'd throw myself into work. This is what I'm going to do. And then, so my human needs are getting met, my certainty, my uncertainty, my my love, my adoration. So I'm getting all these things from work. So all of a sudden I'm leaving out the family members. So then I've got this battle going on. So I'm trying to lose myself in work. That's not working. I'm trying to not drink and eat lots more. So I'm eating lots more. Then I try exercise. Then I'm sitting there like some sort of guru with two joysticks either side of me, thinking that I've found the answer, and I'm going to start chanting like the Eagles. I'd throw myself into it. I would literally try anything to try and get myself out. I'm thinking I would try running. I would try going on holiday. I would try the promises, writing things out to my kid. I will never do this again. I will never do this again. This is, you've got daddy back. Like I said, the willpower, so many things. So there was a list. I mean, I did a sponsorship where you write, it's called a log and loser list, like a log list. So you actually do a list of the first 143 pages, a list of all the things that I tried, the things that couldn't keep me abstinent. And you actually look at it and you think, most people, one of these things, my kids aren't happy, is enough for you to change the course of direction in your life. My wife's not happy, course change. I'm not happy, course change. But we don't.
No.
We keep going and going and going on this misery go round, and we can't get off.
It must be so baffling for the people. I mean, it's baffling for us, but for the people around us, it is incredibly, incredibly painful to watch this unfold. Yeah, to watch this person struggle. I mean, that you can hear, just hearing it is, I can hear the struggle and it comes through. Never mind living with it every single day, be it for yourself or be it for the people around you, One quick word about therapy, because it always makes me chuckle a little bit. Therapy gets such a bad rep in the rooms, right? Doesn't it? But it is actually a really useful thing to do.
Yeah.
It does help if you're honest, if you're not lying, And of course, yes, you can go there and you just have a moan and walk out. But skillful psychotherapy is a really great thing. But it is also true that it didn't keep me sober either. It helped me resolve all sorts of other issues, but it didn't keep me sober. It's interesting, isn't it? This sort of dichotomy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Question 6. When you came into the rooms, did you struggle with the word God?
Okay. You had this first, I think, I was so broken. I don't think at that time it mattered what anyone said. It speaks in the text we use, a fundamental idea of God. And I most definitely did. I was talking to God when I was on acid. I'd have this fundamental idea. I'd pray to him enough times, like when the chips were done, when I've busted up my family home again, when I'm begging to go back home and my kids are there and they're crying and I'm saying, please God, please God, please put my family back together. Please don't make me keep doing this. Please make sure they're all right. I miss them, man. Please, I don't want to be without my kids. I want to stop doing this. Please, God, help me. God, help me. So what am I doing in that moment? I must have a fundamental idea of, but it's like a thing for me. I remember coming into the rooms and they're going, you do this, God. And I see it as this character. So I think the beautiful transition of, no fear whatsoever. It's the transition for me of understanding the internal feeling of it, the feeling for me, which is God, as opposed to this guy, the devil and God. So this guy, sandals, cloak, beard, suddenly where is he? I can't see it. How does it work? How does he do it? Trying to understand it, as opposed to letting go. And just understanding that for me, how my journey is with it is, it's just that peace. It's that peace of my will versus God's will. What would Purdy do in this situation? Run on emotion. Every action creates a reaction. I would act out. I would do it. I would be, feel sorry for myself or be heavily elated. Whatever I would do to have that peace and to hand it over to God. So I had no fear of the word God, most definitely. And I love the evolution of understanding it more, and how I've come to understand it. It's incredible. I love it.
Crosses right into question 7, which is, how do you experience your higher power today? Or is there any God moments? Are there any God moments you'd like to share?
Yeah. Being alive, being awake versus being asleep. I think it's, it's the spiritual experience versus spiritual awakening. We get to that spiritual awakening for me, a profound shift in consciousness. I don't want to use anymore. I don't want to drink anymore. How did that happen?
Yeah.
How did that happen when my kids, my wives, my businesses, my life, nothing could stop me from using? Yet 12 steps, having had a spiritual awakening, working with others, I get the spiritual awakening and say, yeah, I'm not the person I was. I'm not that person anymore. Spiritual experiences, I'm coming here today, and I was speaking. And another thing I was talking to you about, going on the bus. I said, I've got this, we live a life of materialistic Range Rovers, big houses, or holidays. I want to go here. I've got a nice car sitting outside my 1-bedroom flat now, but I don't go in it. I got on a bus the other day. It was £2. I end up sitting there speaking to a lovely old couple, and their hands were held so tight, and you could see they were so in love, and they were old. And I said, "Hello, you're all right?" And they said, "Yeah, we're just off to town to buy our little grandkid a present, and we're only £20, and we might treat ourselves to a coffee." And I know it may sound strange, but I feel I got off the bus. I'm already feeling really like internally happy. I get off the bus, it starts to rain. The rain starts to hit my face. I start to feel really beautiful inside and think about, and get a little bit teary. Why did I chase all this stuff? Why did I have to be there? Why did I need all this stuff when there's so much beauty in the world? I get to the end of my walk, and there's an ice skating rink, and there's loads of people skating around on the ice. And I'm so happy. I broke down, man. I watched these people skate. Before, I'd have been like, I should have had that life. Look at them all happy. Why did she leave me? Why did this? All this noise. And I can sit there and I can look at these people happy ice skating. And it is a God moment. It's a God consciousness, because I've got my eyes open. I'm not some vampire that's creeping around in the middle of the night. I'm up. I'm alive. I'm talking to people. So I feel these things, I feel this natural, like coming here today on the train, and I've got 80s music on, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening. I'm having a little boogie, and an old woman comes in, and I offer up my chair to her, and she goes, "Oh, you're nice for someone with all those tattoos." And you can smile over that, like it makes a difference. And you can smile, and I'm having it, all the time. I mean, I've had some big moments. One when we spoke about suicide.
Yeah.
We spoke about you waking up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Something incredible happened that day. A real spiritual experience. I didn't know about spiritual experiences then, or spiritual awakening. So I'll tell you about it. If it was a woman, a nurse, sitting at the end of my bed. Not an affirmation, not a real person sitting at the end of my bed. And her name was Bernadette. And I obviously was in a lot of pain around my neck. I woke up, she was sitting there. "Hey, Purdy, going to be looking after you, going to be taking care of you. You're going to be going down to a treatment centre. We're going to run some tests. I'm going to be coming in the taxi with you." I said, "Okay, yeah, no problem at all." We're in the back of this taxi making small talk. And she says, "Where are you from?" I said, I'm from London." I said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "I'm from Cornwall." Now, remember I said I was adopted. So, I was adopted, and I was born in Cornwall, in a little place called Troon. And I know that because it's on my birth certificate, 13 New Road, Troon. So that's my address. So I sitting in the back of this taxi with this woman, and she said, "That's funny you should say that. I'm from Cornwall." I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Where from?" I said, "Oh, you would never have heard of it. I'm from this little place called Troon." She said, "I'm from Troon." I said, "Oh, well, I was adopted there 44 years ago." She turned from my carer. This is 44 years later in London, hundreds of miles away from Cornwall. And I'm sitting in the back of this taxi with a nurse, and she puts her hands over her face, and she turns from my carer into a child before my very eyes. And she said, you're not Melanie's little boy, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, Melanie was my mum."
Yeah.
She said, "Oh my God, your mum was my best friend. And when she was pregnant with you, I remember your nan was the head teacher of a school. It was very frowned upon, and we were running away and sleeping in barns together." I was like, "Oh my God, are you joking me?" So 44 years ago, you're trying to save my life, and now 44 years later, you're in the back of a taxi saving my life again. So when you speak of spiritual experiences, there are things that you just go, wow. That guy that knocked on the door with the guy with the machete, was that a spiritual experience? I don't know. All I know is I didn't know anything about spiritual experiences, and coming into a 12-step program and understanding it better, because I am by no means floating around. I'm definitely working on me as a human being. But to experience something like that and seeing the power of God, seeing the power of that going, here you go. Here's something this might give you a bit of hope, but we don't know about those things. So, you come out of it and I'm drinking again.
Yeah.
But now to look back, wow. And I feel it all the time. I feel it in the rooms. I feel it in in their presence, their eyes, the way they're lit up, the way lives change. I feel it all the time, this presence, this power, and it's gorgeous. Yeah. So lucky.
I have to say that this is, I think, the third time I've heard your story, and whenever it gets to that part, I always choke up. It's something really special, what happened there. It is so, so special. Speaking of working on yourself as a human being, question 8. Which parts of the steps were the most difficult for you?
Okay. I didn't have major issues with the steps because I fell in love with step 1. Crazy. Because for me, my brain's always thinking, so to suddenly have a pathway, to be so busted up and so broken. I remember so quickly did I start the steps. And I've told the story before when I came into the rooms and they said, put your number in the chat, get a sponsor. And I'm thinking, all these, speak to God. So I go, oh God. I listened to somebody share and it gave me so much hope. And I remember crying my eyes out and asking for help. Somebody phoned me. Purdy, you're not a bad person. You're just sick like me. And I cried my eyes out. And the next day we started this step work, step 1. Yeah, so we started this step work, and it was incredible to me to understand, to learn that, there's a lie that lives inside me, to understand that I've got an illness, a mental obsession that triggers an allergy. I'm completely cut off to any sort of spirituality. We work through this and we do this process of this first step, understanding that I am totally and utterly powerless to this stuff. Life is completely unmanageable, and I am going to die. And I get to the end of this step and I was so lit up. How do I get a sponsor? And he's like, I am your sponsor and we've just done step 1. So for me, I was living in the steps. Step 2, believing about, I start to connect with the universe. Step 3, handing over to the care. I got to step 4 and I shouldn't have worried because I've handed it over to the care of God. In step 3, why am I worried about step 4? I'm worried because I'm a human being. It's early days for me. My problems are the size of the world. How do I start to put together all the things that have happened to me? How do I do that? Because I now call it's like the pen to paper step, because it's happened, but it's picking up that pen to start that process. So I bulked. I didn't find it hard. I bulked at that point. But the reason that it was so beautiful is because I connected back to step 2 in that step, and then another spiritual experience happened with the woman in the beach hut. Okay. So I was, if you don't mind, I'll tell you about it. So I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. I'm okay. I'm starting to think, right, I'm enjoying this. Step 4, right, I've got to write all this stuff down about what happened in my life. And I get a little bit in self. Find my sponsor, we have a conversation, and I think, right, okay, I've got to connect here. How do I connect? Step 2, that connection side. So I get out and I go and swim in the ocean. I connect with universe, the metaphysical magnificence. I connect, I get in the sea, it's freezing cold. I go for a swim, I go under the water, I come up, the sun's shining, I walk back over, and a little old woman walks around the corner. Now, I've lived in this flat for, a year. I never come out in the day normally anyway, but I've started to come out in the day now. So this woman walks around the corner and she says, hello, darling, you all right? So we're having this conversation, a human conversation. She said, you and your kids, I see you and your kids going over the beach a lot. And I said, yeah, because all my children are back in my life now, today, and I'm present and I'm daddy again. And I love that. I said, that's right. She said, well, I'm getting a bit old now. She said, but I've got a beach hut because I live right on the beach. So she said, I've got a beach hut. She said, any time you guys, it's total stranger, lives in the same place that I do, total stranger. Any time that you and your kids want it, come and knock round on my door. I'll give you the keys and you can have it for the weekend, for the week. I remember walking back up to my flat, Sylvia, and thinking, what just happened then? Do you know what I mean? What just happened then?
Yeah.
I was so in to the steps because I felt them. I felt that I was living in them. I felt it like it was almost like an organic experience where I'd reconnected. This magical thing happened, and I got my pen to paper, and I carried on with that process. Another thing I might have balked a little bit at step 10, at the discipline. Because my life has been so undisciplined. So all of a sudden, working with it, being said, I've got to every night, inventory, check yourself before you wreck yourself, get this, what time's you got to be in by? 10 o'clock, right, okay, I'll make sure it's done. That's not what it's about. This is where I've got to search deep and diligently within myself to understand who I am, understanding that and then giving into that and surrendering to that step and going, right, do you know what? I'm going to go deep every single time on this. When things happen, I'm going to deal with them there and then. That's beautiful, that process now. Yeah. So they're probably the only 2, 4 and 10 that I had a bit of but as an entirety, I've loved the steps. Loved them. Life-changing.
Absolutely. Question 9. Which character defects give you most trouble?
No, I'm absolutely fine.
Perfect Purdy.
Perfect. Oh, wow. Okay. Self-pity. It was a big one for me, morbid reflection of, even though life was so unbearable, I'd created this avatar that I created, this meat suit, this monster, externally with this internal kind being. It was, I've completely forgotten the question. We're going to have to.
Which character defects give you most trouble? So forgetfulness.
Forgetfulness is one of them. So self-pity and self-loathing. So looking back at that life, looking back at what I had and what I should have had. And if I wouldn't have done that, I could have, even sober, even where I can pray and meditate on it, even where I can understand and I've done the steps, there's still that little bit that wants to creep in every now and again and go, why'd you do that? What's this? And I can very quickly go to self-pity, or someone might say something, it's something not very nice. Guess what? People aren't nice. People will say things that will upset you. It's about having in that moment, being able to lean into God, being able to lean in and deal with it straight away and understand it. So self-pity, that morbid reflection, definitely, I can be a little controlling. I started a big online platform and it wasn't one of the reasons. The main reason was a labour of love. It was for love, but offering service, letting go of, this controlling side, because it comes from a nice place. It comes from a place where life was such a mess that actually I had to have in my life, I had to try and gain some sort of control, whatever level that was, to try and make sure I was all right, that I could survive, that I could be this street kid that could turn his life around. So letting go of some of that control, it has to be a certain way, even though my ideals are, life has proven to me in the part that I've got, what do I know? I know absolutely nothing, but it's there. It's a feeling. It's something I'm aware of. So definitely, they're the 2 main ones for me: that self-pity, morbid reflection, and control.
Yeah, amazing. Question 10: what's the best thing recovery has given you?
Oh man, this is where I get emotional. Silvio, mate, it's life-changing. I know we've said it a couple of times, but it is life-changing. It really is. The biggest thing recovery has given me is a quiet mind.
Right.
A quiet mind. I can sit here with you now. We can, just maybe hear a bird in the background. My head wasn't that. My head wasn't that before. Being able to live in life, to be able to get quiet, to be able to have peace, to be able to taste, touch, feel, smell, see, hear, all these senses, all this. I could talk forever, especially about recovery, because I absolutely love it. But to not have anything going on up here, I remember I wanted to tear the noises out of my head. That was another time I was always praying, God, please take these noises out of my head. Yeah. Please, I can't take any more in. It felt like I was full, like not one little more thing could go in there. Now that quiet peace, what has recovery given to me? Because it's given me a quiet peace. It's given me a peace in my mind that I can just breathe and just be. It's given me friends, unbelievable friends within fellowship, incredible people. I get emotional just thinking about them. On the way here, we're talking, we're chatting on the phone, we're playing music, it's a real love real love energy, between fellowship, between fellows, between friends, new friends, the same we've all had the same thing. We're miserable. We don't want to do this anymore. And then we change our lives. So we've got that common thread, we're drawn together. It reminds me sometimes, it's funny, it's a bit like the unity I felt in the old rave days in that club. Totally. Surrounded by a load of addicts, all elated. Now we're doing exactly the same thing. So that was probably the point where I was most happy, is that point there. But the party doesn't go on forever. No. And we know that. To actually be in a point now surrounded by addicts where we can talk openly, like me and you are doing now, and we can have a conversation about our darkness, and we can start to talk about the light, the peace of mind, the feeling happy, the music, the walking around, living, loving life, surrounded by fellowship, surrounded by friends. Wow, what is it? It's every day, every day. It just feels incredible.
Taking it back a little bit here, making me emotional now. It is true. If I think back, the way we were partying back then, and that joy that we felt at that time, and the solution, very much quote unquote, of course, that we found at that time, and giving us that sense of togetherness and all the rest of it, it's just, unfortunately, it was fake. It wasn't real, and now it is real. I mean, the amount of times, and I've said this so often, that, you're sitting around your kitchen table, you're talking bollocks till 4 or 5 in the morning with people, and you're like so connected. Oh my God, this is so real, and you're so brilliant. And then, and then that moment comes when the light comes up, and then the birds start singing, you go, oh God, and everything. Then that awfulness comes in, the crushing come down and things, and you realize it was all bullshit. You meet them the next day, or maybe even worse, they hang about, and you're like, oh my God, who the hell are you? And what we were just saying. But this time it's real. It's beautiful. Question 11, what would you say to a newcomer or someone wondering if they're an addict?
Wow, come in. Come all the way in, sit all the way down. This is a life-changing experience, and am I a real addict? Yeah. Do you know what? I don't want to do it anymore, but I can't stop. Demoralizing, pitiful experiences where I keep destroying my life, destroying other people's lives. I want to get off, but I can't. I want to get off this misery go-round, but I can't. I do it time and time again. You just spoke about it. I'm sitting there having these pointless conversations in kitchens and trying to change the world, and then it's forgotten. And then I'm letting people down, and I'm doing it again. And I'm doing it again. And I'm doing the misery go round. For me, an addict I was a hopeless addict because I so desperately wanted to stop. I didn't even, the last 5 years of my using, I used to go and pick up gear, and on the way, I used to actually go to bed and go, you're going to go to sleep. Come on, you can do this, you're going to go, and then get up. Physically get up, get ready, instantly it would give me a life because I was so debilitated. But then as soon as I had an idea that I was going to go and get some, I'd spring up, I'd be like a new person. Going to get something that I don't want to get, driving there, actually throwing up because I know the sensations that's coming when I'm going to sniff it and feel that sickness. I'm actually physically throwing up, driving to get it. So overpowering is this stuff. I don't want to do it. I don't even like it anymore. I'm just doing it because it's the obsession. It's so ingrained in me. So for me, a newcomer, you don't want to do it anymore because I've got friends that do it. They can pick up one, they can have a part, they can have a drink, they can do it. I'm not that person. I will take it to obliteration every single time till I've got nothing left, till I'm hanging from a tree, till I want to die, till I don't want to be here anymore, till I've lost everything around me. I'm that addict. So, and all the time, I'm not some wild child, like going, I love all this sensation. I don't. I'm crying into my lines of cocaine on my own, smoking dog butts in my flat on my own. That's not Viva Las Vegas, as I see it in my mind, and all the time convincing myself that it's going to be okay. I had to give it up. Understand that I want to be different, but I can't. That's how I know I'm an addict. And if you're a newcomer, I said it at the beginning, come in and get involved and be part of this life-changing experience. And it's so beautiful to get this opportunity to say you can't experience the experience till you've experienced it. I'm experiencing it. I'm a real addict. I'm a hopeless, junkie addict that's wrecked his life. Now it's different. So there's hope. You can recover. 100% you can recover. Come in.
Wonderful. Last but not least, question 12. what do you want your higher power to say to you at the pearly gates?
Wow. Okay. What do I want my higher power to say to me? My God, I didn't think I'd see you. You were knocking about with that red geezer with the horns for so many years. Go on, what are you doing here? No, do you know what? I'd hope he'd say, Silvio. I think I'd just hope he'd say, welcome. I know you've got a big heart, Purdy. Do you know what I mean? I know you've got a big heart, mate. If I went to the pearly gates, after that realisation that I'm not with the red guy with the horns, I'm standing there in front of God, I'd hope that he'd say to me, Purdy, you've got a big heart, mate. You've got a big heart. Because I give back now, Silvio, do you know what I mean? I give back. I work tirelessly at this stuff. I pulled people out of pits, the pit that I was in, from a position of experience. So it's not that I want anything for it at the pearly gates. I think I'd just like to, maybe, it feels quite deep to talk about it as home. I said I've never had a home, but maybe for him to go, come in, come and sit at the table. There's a place here for you.
You're at home now.
Maybe that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. One quick word before we finish is if you've built a wonderful platform, a Zoom platform of meetings. Do you want to quickly talk about it and let people know where they can find you and the solution that we have?
I would absolutely love to. So yes, complete labour of love. I mean it when I say that this has changed my life. I make no bones about it. It has completely and utterly changed my life, and I wanted to give back. For me, I look at my recovery and I was thinking, what's helped me? Because I can't change the world or profess to be some sort of spiritual teacher that I'm not holier than thou. We were talking, I'm not holier than thou. But what I want to do is I want to make a difference. I want to be a hope dealer. I want to give people my experience to say that you can recover. So spiritual cartel, spiritual cartel, where it come from, I'm very friendly with some people in America. You have the spiritual gangster group, and I wanted to create something over here. And I look at what spiritual means and what it means to me. And I look at a cartel, which is this, this team driving a certain thing. And I wanted that to be solution, driving a solution. It's a spiritual cartel. And it sounded pretty cool as well. I went with that. But we go, we had this 365-day a year plan in my mind where recovery is available every single day to everybody. Christmas Day, New Year's Day, there is a meeting on every single night at 8 o'clock UK time called Spiritual Cartel. Can be found online. So then it's the format. What do I want to bring to this? Because there's lots of stuff. Bringing people into service, because we created the beautiful service team that are around me. The incredible work that they put in, the dedication, the love, voted in. So we put it back out to group, which is great because we start to, everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome. And that's why we have these meetings where we get together and people can come in. So we suddenly create a team. Suddenly there's lots of people in service. Suddenly we've got this meeting that's up and running. We put formats together. And the way that the formats were built was the recovery. For me, it's funny. Meditation and gratitude were huge in my recovery. Early days. So I was getting quite comfortable with meditation and understanding breath and getting into this quite early day. And gratitude, writing my grateful list every day. So Monday became meditation and gratitude. As an opportunity to come in for us to hold a space together and sit there. And it started off 20, 30 people and we're sitting there and we're meditating, putting a pre-recording on. And then it develops. All of a sudden we have a beautiful woman from Canada that comes in and does a live meditation. We open up the big book and we do a live meditation. There's now 100 people on that meeting sitting there meditating online. So Monday's in place. And then we come back in, we're full of Zen and we share on gratitude. We talk about how grateful we feel. It's amazing when we can tap into that. Tuesday, we get into the steps. So step work. Steps, one step every single week, back to 1 to 12, 1 to 12. And we have different speakers coming in internationally from all around the world to speak. And again, it just grows. It grows. The meeting average is 100 people a night. We had a meeting last night, 170 people on it. Listening to someone else's story of experience, strength and hope. Incredible fellowship. Wednesday, we open up the book and we talk about our basic text. On a Thursday, we look at the spiritual principles. Love, forgiveness, hope. These beautiful things. And we talk about them. Speakers come in on a Friday. We have our Fire in the Booth session. A guest speaker comes in and shares, like we're doing now, shares their experience, strength and hope. And people get to listen, and then they get to come in and talk back. On Saturday, one thing that's really important in my recovery is music. So the recovery wheel, we have Motown, we have a bit of music playing. We come in and we talk about topics, and then afterwards we have a unity event. And then on Sunday, we go deep into the text. We draw forth the deeper meaning of the words. We pull out of the words spiritually, and we really have a deep study and understanding of it. So that's where it comes out. Obviously, it goes to groups, so now all decisions, because that control thing, But you have to have an idea and you have to run with it. I've seen a lot of places where they can't get off the ground. It had to come from me. It had to be a thing where it came internally with God and this idea of love and this meeting that I wanted to produce. But then it starts to get handed over. Then it starts to go to group. Then input comes in, and that's where it really starts to grow and flourish. So I'm super proud of the meeting. Super, super proud of it. It's hard work, but say it's hard work. It's a lot of work, but it's so, so, so rewarding just to see people recover, to see people get a solution, to see people come in and start getting sponsored, to see my beautiful service team and everything they offer and the love that they give. It's an incredible platform.
Great. Amazing. Spiritual Cartel every evening, 8 p.m. UK time. Wonderful. Purdy, you brought a lot of fire to this booth. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story, for being so honest, being so courageous, and sharing your message with us today. Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Silvio.
We've come to the end of this episode. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed it and would like other addicts and alcoholics to hear it, then please make the pesky AIs and algorithms work their 12th step. Hit like and subscribe. While this pod is based on the 12-Step Recovery Program, it's not officially affiliated with any 12-Step Fellowship. 12 Steps and 12 Questions is not substance or behavior specific, it's fully self-supporting and not-for-profit. And you know this next bit. It's not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, and it neither endorses nor opposes any causes.